Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second to last video number 24 in this How to Draw series with Dees. Oh, that's me, world's greatest teacher. Now, here's what we're going to do. Today, you're going to learn how to use a grid, which is some guidelines that divide up your picture and your page that you're drawing on in order to make sure that you can use them sort of as training wheels and make sure that everything's going in the right place. I'm sure this is going to be fantastic. If you've never used a grid before, you're probably going to think it feels like cheating, but you still have to draw the lines, you still have to do the shading, you can still mess it up a lot. Just take your time and do your best. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hey, what's up? I just wanted to show you today how to kind of look at the picture and what am I going to do? What do I need to do? I need to look and I need to say, okay, is that shape the same as my notebook, as my piece of paper? Absolutely not. Like a completely opposite angle from the way that I actually want it to be. So, what can I do to fix that? What I need to do in my mind, you've done this on an app before, I'm sure, but in my mind I need to crop it. What I'm going to draw today is a rectangle that matches a little bit better going to match a little bit better to the actual artwork that I'm going to be doing. So I want it to be a rectangle that's skinny and goes across. I don't want it to be a rectangle that goes up to the top. So I want it to be about the same proportions as that piece of paper that I showed you before. And where do I want it to go? I want it to include a little bit. I think I want to have all the stuff on the bottom. I think I might just bring the top down till it becomes a rectangle. Something like that. I'm using a tool right now, using Photoshop in order to edit this. I'm gonna bring the bottom up a little bit. Actually, I want that whole shadow there at the bottom, so I'm gonna bring this down a little. There we go. Now we have ourselves a lovely little centered piece of artwork in the middle of where we're going to go that is about the same shape across as this, right? You see this rectangle here, that one page of it matches pretty well with that shape over there. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, and that's what we're going to use as we go ahead. I'm going to show you how to lightly draw that grid on your paper and use it as a guideline to make sure that your drawing turns out exactly like you want it to. And we're going to try and copy those lines that we have over there. So I'm not going to measure or anything. You could, if you wanted to, you could divide it. I just look for, I'm going to have to draw two lines in order to be able to break it into thirds. And then I'm going to draw two lines to break it into thirds. So it's going to be like a tic-tac-toe board. So try to go 1, 2, 3, a little smaller, 1, 2, 3, a little bigger than that, a little 1. Something like this. Something like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and very lightly sketch straight line up. Same thing this way. Sorry if you have any trouble seeing this, but I promise it's important to get it done in a way that does not leave marks behind, or else it's going to make it obvious in the end that that's what you were doing with your drawing. So now all I'm going to do is go super slow, Sammy the Snail style, and I also check. I say like, okay, I see that my orange, the top of my orange, goes just a little above right here, then comes back down right there, a little shy of where these two corners hit each other. I know that goes there. And it comes right back down. Comes about halfway across at its furthest, so about here. Like that. Comes down. Around. This maybe went up a little too high. Came down a little too fast. It curves really quick, kind of flat on the bottom. Now I can check and see. I like the way that everything curves. This curves from about here to about here. That looks right on my grid. Looks right. This comes up down and down. That looks about right to me. Down in here, about where this is going to be. I want to make it too dark in case I decide later on that I need to adjust something. My highlight is going to be somewhere in here. I'm not going to draw anything in there. I'll leave that for later. Now coming across from here and down, kind of a curved line here. Goes a little further than that far. Curves up, around, and hits this line here. This is one of these ellipses. Tough if you haven't practiced them. You got to practice your ellipses. That's the only way to learn them. I'm just checking, making sure it crosses over the line in the right spot. Back down. This part starts a little below where the orange and the line hit right there. Out, curves down. Curves back a little bit. Something like that. Get a shape. That right there. Pointed oval. Curves up and around right there. And there's another one there. Then you get some shading and some shadows all around. But right now I'm just laying in the basic lines. This curves right at this crossroads between these boxes. Comes in, up, in and out. Little hangs over the corner of this box right here. Then comes up about. Just measuring, is it halfway? Is it half of halfway? Nothing has to be perfectly exact. This is going to help you so much. It's going to be so much more real and so much exactly where it's supposed to be than you're used to, that even if you're a little bit off, you're still going to be very happy, and it making you feel accomplished is going to make you more likely to practice more drawing, and that's really how you get better at drawing. By practicing. Shadow that comes here like this. This line comes over this way a little bit. This one, oh, here about where this hits this line. Crosses over, doesn't get too close to this line. Yeah, and then we got to go back here. About halfway up, coming out of the back of this. Let's see if it lines up there. Trying to make sure it lines up here as well as the other way, so that it would be an actual line going behind here. Right? Now we got some shadows to lay in. Oh, we got to find the bottom of this first. Hold on. Bottom of this curves from right above where this hits this. So right about here. Comes down a little bit from there. Starts going back up and hits the back of that pair. Underneath there is a shadow, so we'll just start with that shadow. Pretty dark, pretty skinny shadow. For the really dark part of it, at least, is pretty dark and pretty skinny. Careful when you're doing the edge that you don't change, or when you're doing the shadow that you don't change the edge, and therefore change the shape of everything that you're drawing. This shadow comes and connects right here with the edge of this. One comes back and diagonal till it hits right about there, right about where that curves. Gonna finish that part up. A nice shadow down here, nice and close. And then it's pretty dark. Not the darkest spot, but it's pretty dark. right underneath this apple, I think, is probably the darkest thing. So I'm probably going to come up there with a darker pencil later on. For right now, I'm just laying in gray. Try not to leave any big giant streaks or anything that I'm going to have to fix later. Under this, right around here, where this shadow goes. Then curving back this way, where this shadow goes. Getting skinnier and getting thicker. Still paying attention to where does it hit this in comparison to where is the corner of this box. It's all, as you draw more and more, you just get more points of reference that you can measure things from. How far does it go from here? How far is it from here? How far is it from there? How about there? Is it closer to this fruit than this fruit, or this fruit than this fruit? All those things are things that you can pay attention to and work on. Yeah, the shadow has some holes in it down here. Overall, looking good. I shade this in a little gray. Nothing super dark about this shadow. Normally they're only really, really, really dark right where they're up against the thing and it's hitting surface, like here. That was pretty dark. You see, I try to make my shadow and my outline of my shadow the same color so that those lines kind of fade away as I shade around. A really good tip that I learned in a painting class in college, but it works just as well for drawing. Sort of, you decide whether you want the edge to fade forward or the edge to fade backwards and just make it happen. Let's see, we still got shadow over here. There. There. Again, this one has a little bit of extra dark right in here, where it's the closest. Pressing a little harder there, going over it maybe an extra time or two than I normally do for the rest of the shadow, just to make it a little extra dark. Obviously, I'm not going for huge contrast, or else I wouldn't be laying in just one gray. I'd be laying in medium gray, light gray, medium light gray, dark gray, medium dark gray, super dark gray, black, white, all that stuff. We're kind of going for the, what are we using, about 4 values, right? About 3 values. We got white, got a little gray, we got dark gray. We got so far. We definitely haven't brought anything out to a black yet. Okay. It's obviously lit in 2 places, so I'm going to have secondary shadows, but I haven't finished with my first direction yet. This one here is going to curve up. I'm just paying attention to the grid here to try and get this shape right. Otherwise, it would be pretty tough. And it just kind of comes down, it's sort of a simple cone shape, curving along the outside of this. And that's something that I want to turn gray and give a fuzzy edge to. It does not have a very solid edge at all, the shadow of that. Alright, what else do we have going on? We need a little bit of, okay, so the back side of this shadow cast on it by itself, curving away. And make it extra dark in the back, and just kind of slowly lighten up my pencil as I come in. Coming back around to lighten it up some. Make it super light as I get out here and just fade it into nothing. You can see that I'm slowly just building up my value. I don't start off really dark anywhere. Nothing is dark at the beginning. By the time I'm done with this, I'll get some values all the way down to a black if I want to. If I want it to be a really beautiful finished drawing, that's what will happen. To me, like, there's just a little itty-bitty light shadow that comes around here. Sort of probably from a secondary light source. Enough to just put a little smudge there. Mix some of that together to get that good fade. And bothering me, so I'll clean it up. Boom. Shadow down all the way to that edge. You don't want a little holiday. There was a little gap between the edge and where the shadow came to, and that's called a holiday. Those are not good to have in your artwork. All right, so I'm just going to do really light shading on just the darkest parts of my shapes, just so that I can get finished here. Move on. Show you the next thing. You could spend hours doing this. Build up your lights. Go in with an eraser. Make them lighter and lighter and lighter. Then bring your darks. Come back in with a darker pencil and make them darker. And then each time you come in and you have a little bit of a darker lead, or you're pressing a little bit harder, you pick a few less areas to go over. That way it doesn't all just wind up super dark. You wind up with the right areas being exactly the right amount of darkness to make everything look the way that you want it to. And I have a video on how to shade a sphere. If you haven't watched that, you should. Definitely an opportunity where we're shading a sphere and then shading kind of a squished up sphere, and then we're shading a kind of a cone up here, and then we're kind of shading another sphere over here. Later on, if I was to shade this all gray, I would come in and erase those white little speckle marks, and that's what would really make this look like it had the texture of an orange. But as far as what we are doing right now, I think I need to clean up my last few grid lines. Sometimes you got to erase a little bit of your shading and come back in and refade it just to get rid of that grid line. So overall, this is very simple. Like I said, you definitely could still put in more darks and go back in with an eraser and keep putting in lights. And eventually when you get it all gray, then you come in with like the corner of an eraser and you start picking out little white spots, almost like you're drawing with a white pencil. Or you get, really fancy art supplies and you have stuff like that to work with from the beginning. Anyway, this is how you use a grid to lay out the basics of doing some observational drawing. So this is one, I just showed you how we've gone step by step, all the way from the beginning, everything that I know how to teach you, all the way from how to draw a line, and now you're looking at photographs of things, turning them into black and white pencil drawings, and drawing them as realistically as you can. If you keep practicing, I would do, 10 of these, take a picture of them, put the grid on them, draw it. Take a picture of it, try it without the grid. See if you're ready. If you're not, go back to the grid. The goal eventually is to not need that grid, to be able to kind of see your paper sliced up, see the thing that you're looking at sliced up automatically that way in your mind, and sort of use those guidelines. But as long as you need the grid, use the grid. Practice, practice, practice. Keep coming back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a serious homework assignment that you have this time. I want you to draw 10 still lifes, sometimes with the grid, sometimes without the grid. It's really, the grid is not the most important thing. What's important is you are practicing, because every time you practice, you will get better. It might not feel like it, but you will be getting better at how to take the basic shapes, turn them into the basic forms, then start looking for where your real light source is, then start doing your shading using your value techniques, then check and see if there's anything that you need to use your perspective techniques on. You see how it all adds together. So I want you to practice 10 different of these with and without grids. You got this. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last thing that I wanted to say. This is going to be at the end of every video, I do believe. When you are done with your homework, take it on over to the Discord and turn it into the art submissions. We want to see what you're working on. I will pop in from time to time, usually around 4 o'clock in the morning. Don't get weirded out by that. And I will give you feedback on the work that you have done. So make sure that you check the link below so that you can get to our Discord and you can join these submissions and start putting your art out there for people to see, give you feedback, help you get better at. I got a bunch of artists that have already gone through my class that hang out in there, and if you think you're going to do something funky, you're not, because my mods are going to get you. You understand what I'm saying? I might be a boomer, but my mods are powerful zoomers. I'm not challenging you, though. Please don't mess with please, just be nice. Just do the artwork.